You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. Don't forget to follow us on X at Dr. Daliah and on Facebook, the Dr. Daliah Show. Also on YouTube. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. We are building our YouTube channel as we go. So some individuals are able to maintain their weight. Some aren't. Who are the ones that are able to maintain the weight loss? If you, day one, said, I'm eating fish, I'm eating vegetables, I'm exercising at the gym, and I'm just going to use Wegovy or Mounjaro or Zepbound or Ozempic to just limit and temper those cravings, then when you go off the medication, slowly, you'll still maintain your weight loss. But if you are, as I've said before, doing Jesus take the wheel, I'm going to Outback Steakhouse. I don't want to crave and eat my whole steak. I only want to eat half the steak and half the fries. So you need to help me do that. You're going to gain your weight back. And so we need to, as a country who's already struggling to cover health care, is it worth it? Now, the rich are getting it. I'm a big fan of Oprah, but truth of the matter is Oprah's rich. So yeah, she lost weight. Amy Schumer has lost weight. Kelly Clarkson. I don't know if for sure they've been using the medications, but we have very wealthy celebrities who I am fans of have lost weight, and good for them. I want them healthy. But who's going to pay for this drug for the non-celebrity? It's going to take you or I. And is it worth it? As in public health, we need to decide, is the money we're spending now going to be worth it? Well, if you told me, Daliah, that weight loss is permanent, so you are going to protect all these individuals who live in the stroke belt or live in zip codes where they have higher morbidity and mortality because of their weight, I would be like, sign it up. I'll donate money to the cause. But people go off the medication, or they can't afford the medication, or the medication's in short supply, and their weight goes right back up. So it's not a good investment if it's temporary. And the more we are learning that people are craving and getting hungry again when they start to go off their medication or they can't get their medication, the more we're realizing those initial thousands of dollars that were spent, let's say as a deal, let's say you can get it for $10,000 a year. $10,000 a year, which is a deal, to be able to get monthly injections. $10,000 a year. What happens after 5 years? Are you going to gain the weight back? Are you even allowed to take the medication for 5 years? Do we understand the long-term health implications of it? Some people are losing weight because they're just not eating. Okay, well, starvation is not a healthy eating plan. You still need to be getting your regular nutrition. Are you doing that? Can you afford to go and get groceries because you're spending the money on this? Insurance companies are going to be pushing back. They're not going to want to spend this kind of money because it's ridiculous. It's even cheaper at some point to be dealing with the high blood pressure and the high cholesterol. Those medications are cheap. Now, Bernie Sanders has already just, started the path to getting some transparency, because one study showed that these medications could be easily made for $5 a month with some profit. So I would like a little bit more transparency on why these medications are costing this, but it's still that expensive. It's still costing anywhere from $1,000 to $1,600 a month. So these other countries are like, we can't do it. But interesting, medicines are usually more expensive in America. In Denmark, they're not happy with the prices of these medications too. Which means this is a global issue of these medications being expensive. And honestly, if we could figure out how to use this long term, this could really really save millions and billions of dollars and billions of people's lives in terms of cholesterol and heart disease and diabetes. I just don't see people able to stay on the medicine. And what nobody is talking about is you becoming used to it and you becoming tolerant. I'm hearing from patients that like it stopped working. Tracy Morgan was honest. He says, I gained 40 pounds through it. That's what Tracy Morgan said. He said he burned right through the medication and gained 40 pounds. Well, if you're getting nauseous on it, so then you're trying to overcome the nausea, or you're, going, you know what? I'm not gaining weight so I could finally eat the foods I've never been able to eat. Yes, you're going to gain weight. So the question is how much are we willing to spend to temporarily lower people's weight? I think it's worth it if we could get some permanence to it. But if it's not permanent, you're going to be out $10,000 a year at minimum. And we're going to see more and more insurance companies say no. And I've had people say they're going to take a loan. They said they will pay this because if they could lose their weight, it's worth it. It's cheaper than cosmetic surgery. Again, why isn't the media talking about the longevity of it? So I want us to have fewer diabetics, fewer high blood pressure patients, fewer cholesterol patients. I think our longevity I think this could help life expectancy. I have never been more excited about a class of medications, but I have also been very skeptical seeing what I'm seeing. 1-877-DOC-DALI, DOCDALI. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. And big thanks to Daniel, our producer. I love Daniel. Daniel is our everything for this show. So God bless Daniel. Thank you, man. Love you. So I want to talk a little bit about voter psychology. All right. We talk about everything on this show. And we do talk about politics because everything is related to us and health and our well-being. And yeah, politics are a big part of it. We just talk about everything on the show. But one topic I really love to talk about is voter psychology. Because if you are going to be a successful candidate, a successful party, you got to know what your constituents want. You got to know what your constituents are thinking. You know, thinking that global warming is the biggest issue of the day when many people can't afford groceries, you're kind of you're missing out. And so if you want to attract voters, you have to know and understand what it is that makes them tick. Well, one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is voting in person is not as enthusiastically embraced as it once was, now that we have options of mail-in ballots. And even though you have a lot of criticism over the mail-in ballots and the room for error and harvesting and some of us not getting our ballots and somebody using our ballots and voting instead, even though the massive use of mail-in ballots can increase the number of mistakes, it looks like Americans are still preferring to send their ballot than vote. Nevada, for example, the Daily Independent or the Daily Indy says there were 68,000 election day votes. Now, Nevada has about 3.1 million people, assuming 500,000 kids, maybe still. We have, let's say a third are children. Let's just say still of over 2 million voters. Really? Only 60-some thousand went to the polls? And I get it's a primary, but still, 68,000 Nevadans. That means only 16% of our voters. They said the final in-person counts said that more than 3 times as many people voted early. I believe there were 250,000 mail-in ballots submitted or sent in. I don't have all the breakdown, but we are hearing in a lot of precincts that voter turnout was in the tens of thousands when you have millions that could be voting. So what's going on here? We need to be honest. What is going on? Why did you not go and vote? Is it the weather? I live in southern Nevada. It's hot. It's hot. I came back from Germany and it was cool and crisp and here it was triple digit. It was hot, but I don't mind. It's a dry heat. I can still vote. I don't mind if it's hot. Is it that you're worried that somebody's going to see you? Is it that you're worried that there's going to be violence? Usually the polling booths have been pretty damn protected. I feel really safe at a polling booth. And I saw what happened in New York, which was ridiculous on the subway, where pro-Hamas demonstrators were, calling out who's a Zionist. And I understand there's a lot of intimidation in cities across America right now. But from a voting booth standpoint, most people are able to go up to a voting booth because if you want to vote Democrat or Republican, you got to get there to do it. So somebody would be a complete idiot to try to stop you from voting. Is it that you don't leave your house anymore? Since COVID, you are very comfortable being home. So you don't leave your house, which means if you don't mail your ballot, that ballot won't get heard. Now, in the olden days, going to election day was a big day. Going to vote was a big thing. You got dressed up. You went. You were so proud Because putting your ballot into that box, knowing that people died for your freedom to be able to make that free vote, was a gift. Maybe people are losing out on that. Maybe they're just not thinking that. And then also, is it that they think the election doesn't matter? Are people not involved in local politics? I can't tell you how many people live in Nevada who have asked me, Daliah, who's running? Who's running for mayor? Who are these people? And I'm like, well, I know Victoria Seaman. I know there's Cedric. There's some, do I know every name of it? I don't. A lot of people go online for their news. So if they're going online for their news, they're not watching local news stations. If they're not watching local news stations, many of them don't know what's going on locally. And some politicians are bagging on that, which is why sometimes you'll hear at the last minute that the state legislator passed a law and you're like, what? Why did that happen? Well, because nobody's watching. Nobody's paying attention. And so we're starting to pay less attention. Many people wake up, they put on MSNBC or they put on Fox News or CNN, and that's where they get their news, or they go on Facebook. So meanwhile, there's a local election and you're like, who's running? Who? Now, I know Sam Brown. Congratulations on Sam Brown. It's going to be a Sam Brown, Jackie Rosen fight in terms of the election coming up in November. But many other people, they haven't been following. Another thing that I think has also happened is these commercials and campaign seasons turn people off. I can't stand seeing these political ads. You will see a political ad. I don't know Dr. Gunther, but there was a pro ad and a negative ad back to back on the same TV station. And you're like, who do you believe? And it starts to anger people because they're like, well, somebody's lying. Either the first ad lied or the second ad lied. And when people are confused, they will choose to not vote because they're like, I'd rather not put a vote in than vote for somebody who might have been a wrong person. Some people really feel guilty that they put in a vote for somebody that they should have never supported. I've heard that from Biden supporters. I've heard that from Trump supporters. Some people regret their votes. But we really need to look at this because if not that many people decided that a primary election was worthy enough for them to get off their asses to go and vote, what's going to happen in the general election? Now, people say, no, the general election will always, garner more enthusiasm. I don't know. I was kind of shocked by some of the numbers. If people fear going out, going into weather, I mean, look what's happening in Florida, being among individuals that could possibly rob you or, carjack you, and people are starting to feel more isolated, they're not going to vote. Now, what about your vote not counting? It's one thing to not know anything about the candidates and to go, look, I don't want to make an uninformed decision. I just don't know. But coming up for this presidential election, it's hard to not know enough about Biden and Trump to have a decision. And even if you don't like either, there's an independent party, there's none of the above. You could vote for Mickey Mouse if you wanted to. But I fear that there are many people who have already written off voting. Now, why would somebody do that? If you really care that much about your country and people died for your right to vote, why would you do that? Well, let's look at the psychology. Some people have told me they think that if they vote for Trump, somebody's going to know about it. There's going to be a record, and that if things change and cancel culture comes back or whatever, that they won't be able to erase the evidence. That's not supposed to happen. And, the way we do voting now with hitting buttons, maybe we do need to go back to a box where you fill out a piece of paper Nobody could recognize your handwriting. You throw it in the box. Nobody can trace your votes. But now that it is so electronic, where you have to hit a button, and it looks like you're being watched, and it looks like there's cameras, many people fear that who they vote for is going to follow them. So let's talk to some of these voters on why they didn't vote and figure out what needs to be addressed. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi, guys. Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I love hot tubs. Sometimes if the hot tub is dirty, I won't go in it. If I think it's unsafe, if there's some creepy people in the hot tub. But for the most part, if there's a nice, clean, empty hot tub, I am there. Well, I'm going to start rethinking that after this story. In Puerto Penasco, Mexico, 2 American tourists from Texas were electrocuted while at a resort in Mexico sitting in the jacuzzi. One was killed, the other severely injured. Dramatic video showing the moments 2 Americans are believed to have been electrocuted in a hot tub. We are seeing this, and they just look like they lie still. And bystanders are screaming. They're trying to pull them out of the water. Somebody tried to administer CPR. And 43-year-old Jorge, I don't know if I have his last name, was killed. I believe his wife, 35-year-old Lizeth, was injured. Oh, as per policy, they only use the victims' first names. They were from El Paso, Texas. And we don't know what caused it, but they believe there was some sort of an electrical surge that came into the hot tub. And so usually hot tubs pretty insulated, not really supposed to be around any wires. I don't know how, so we don't know how this happened, but very, very frightening. So as soon as we know anything, I'm going to let you know, because that is, you should feel, you should feel safe to be able to, at a resort, go into a hot tub. But we'll keep you posted. Another headline that is pretty scary is there is an 8-year-old girl who almost died after having a routine procedure at a hospital. And this is a similar hospital, same hospital where 2 children died following a similar operation. And a Canadian mother is reporting that her 8-year-old child suffered horrific injuries and almost died after having a tonsillectomy. Sarah List is from Ontario, Canada, and she claims her 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, nearly died at McMaster Children's Hospital, where 2 children have died undergoing similar procedures. Now, her surgery was May 16th, and the 2 child deaths are under investigation, and the hospital has paused all tonsil and adenoid surgeries until a review is complete. Now, they said that Sarah was discharged a few hours after her tonsils were removed. Everything seemed fine until she started vomiting blood the next morning. Mom was terrified, took her back to the hospital, and she has been in the hospital now for 3 weeks. She had to have 3 additional surgeries and 4 nights in intensive care. They believe what happened is she got an infection into her bloodstream. She was lethargic. She was sleepy. She had to be put on a ventilator to help her breathe. And apparently what happened is she ate a hard-boiled egg. Then she complained of the incision in her neck. And apparently pieces of hard-boiled egg got into the incision. There was a 5-centimeter hole. So they had to repair the hole, clean it out, a whole bunch of other stuff. But what the hell? So a tonsillectomy, an adenoidectomy, is a very common procedure. My son had it. But yes, there can be complications. And one complication is bleeding. By the way, it's a very, very painful surgery. You're under anesthesia. They remove the tonsils. They cauterize so there's no bleeding. They make sure there's no bleeding. But when you drink or eat, or if your body, doesn't necessarily clot well, you could have some severe bleeding. Also, because you are removing an organ, a tonsil, the tissue that was there, there could be crevices that could collect food. And so when you do have somebody that undergoes this procedure, you're watching them very closely for bleeding. If they throw up, that could also force any scab to open. And it's very painful. And trying to give these kids pain control, and it's miserable. But I'm a fan of these procedures being done if you have sleep apnea and severe tonsillar infections. So son, we wanted to wait as long as possible, but he stopped growing. He got very skinny and he wasn't growing. And he just was constantly on antibiotics for tonsil infections. Finally, we noticed that he wasn't breathing in his sleep all the time because his tonsils were so big. And that's when the ENT said, now we're going to do it. Once there's apnea, we're not messing around. And I agreed with that. He got them out. Wasn't easy. He hated me for it. But now, no sore throats. And he has a nice wide open pharynx. We've gone back and forth with the whole tonsil removal and not. I remember growing up, Ernie from Ernie and Bert in Sesame Street. Ernie got his tonsils out, got to have ice cream. And I remember telling my mom, I want my tonsils out, right? Because Ernie made it look like it was so much fun to be able to get ice cream and everybody around him had to be nice, which means my parents would have to be nice. Okay. And they're like, no, we're not going to take your tonsils out. But I got to tell you, we went back and forth from we're doing too many tonsillectomies to now they're starting to embrace them again, because if you have a narrow airway, you're not getting as much air to the brain. And so one of the procedures that has been done in the past to help people with sleep apnea is to remove tissue from the pharynx area, the throat area, that is impeding air. And so I'm not saying if you have sleep apnea to get your tonsils removed, but having large tonsils doesn't help. And so having an open airway, when, having chronic infected tonsils, they need to come out. But if you don't have infected tonsils and they aren't enlarged, no, nobody would put you through that because there's risks to the procedure. But sleep apnea oftentimes is obstructive, meaning you have something obstructing the air. Is it your tonsils? Is it your tongue going to the back of your throat? Is it fat? Is it the fat in your neck? Is it your position of sleeping? Is it your anatomy? So I don't want people scared to have a tonsillectomy if their doctor recommends that it has to be, their medical provider recommends it has to be done. But understand that when you do have a procedure like this, there could be some complications. Now, why would a leading pediatric center like McMaster's Children's Hospital have, that rate of complications? The chief of pediatric surgery at the hospital, Dr. Devin Peterson, said the deaths were tragic and very rare. But nobody wants to take their child in for a routine procedure to have something like that happen. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. The IRS is issuing warnings to millions of older Americans because of scams. And I'm seeing that too. I get calls from IRS. I get emails from the IRS. And I'm like, you're not the IRS. And the government has identified a concerning trend where fraudsters are impersonating IRS agents to target unsuspecting individuals, particularly senior citizens. Now, the reason why this is happening is the IRS was very open about how they hired 87,000 more agents. So when you hear that there's tens of thousands of more agents out there, you're like, all right, well, am I going to be called by one? And what do they want? And nobody wants to tick off the IRS. So fraudsters say, I'm with the IRS. You need to do as I say. And sadly, many people are, feeling pressured into doing this. So, if you think you're being scammed, you could contact the IRS. All right? The IRS will never demand immediate payment, will never ask for debit cards, gift cards, wire transfers. IRS will typically send a bill by mail first. They're not going to threaten you. They will never demand payment without offering your appeal. So if you get any of these calls, check in with the IRS first. 1-877-DOC-DALI, don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this was creepy. Did you guys see this video of a man who was chewing on a kid's ear in a world championship snooker video? I don't know. I think this happened in Europe. No offense, Europeans, but I guess it's the World Snooker Championship. And I guess there was an Italian man who you could see in the stands caught nibbling on a child's ear. And Stefano Voci, 43 years old, is a forklift truck operator. He was seen biting and nuzzling the boy. as somebody was giving an interview and he was caught in the view, the camera frame, it had caused widespread discussion and criticism. There was a police investigation, but the investigation has been closed. And the incident, investigated by South Yorkshire Police, said the matter was closed. No further action is taken because the child is a relative of the man. And he was showing endearment. Now, I'm not Italian. I don't know much about the Italian culture. I have a lot of friends who are Italian. I dated some Italians. They are pretty demonstrative. Huh. Boy, are they. A lot of lovey-dovey. If you want love and passion, date an Italian. About the ear nibbling, though, little odd. But it does bring up a conversation about what is appropriate in terms of your kids and or relatives and love. Now, I am very, I'm not very touchy, but I'm very vocal about how much I love somebody. Like, oh, I miss you so much. I love you so much. Oh my God, I could just eat you up. I could just kiss you all day. Okay, I wouldn't kiss them all day, but I'm very verbal about it. I gave my dog a bath, and my dog was upset about having a bath. And Daddy came home, and I said, my little doggy, Tushy's all clean. Her tushy is so clean, you could eat dinner off that tushy. Okay, now we are not going to eat our dinner off the dog's butt, but those are, obviously, but those are things people say. So it's not that uncommon to say, oh, I love him to death. I could eat you up. You are so juicy. You have the squishiest tushy. I could just squeeze that tushy. These are things people say that probably, if you continue to say them, might be deemed inappropriate. But as long as you don't act on it, not a big deal. So what about nibbling a child's ear? Well, I think there's a certain age range where certain touch starts to maybe get to be a little too much. So when you have a baby and you want to do, are they called farfies? Where you put your mouth on their belly button and go, right? And you make and they love it because they feel the vibration through their tummy. And they think it is so funny when you go, on their tummy. I don't know if they're called farfies or what they're called. You will, with a baby, sometimes kiss or smell them or nuzzle up. I do nuzzle with my nose to babies and to young kids. When my son said that he had vegetables at school, I would come up and I would smell them. Nope, you had French fries. And he looked shocked that I could figure that out. I just figured he ate French fries. It's a pretty easy guess. But boy, did he think I had like magical powers because all I could do is smell the top of his scalp and know what he ate. But, when my kids got older, maybe I would hug them and maybe nuzzle a little. I would never bite their ear. That's a little intrusive. Do I kiss my kids? I'll still kiss them on the cheek. Kissing on the lips. I get asked about that. When do you stop kissing the kids on the lip, like a peck? A lot of parents kiss their kids on the lips when they're younger. It's very common. I think it's because give mommy a kiss. And I think it's because the kid. So where one family told me is the kid saw mommy and daddy kiss that way. So every time the kid wanted to kiss mommy, they would go up to them. And in fact, one of my kids did that too. When my kid wouldn't say anything. He would come up to me. This is like he was a toddler. He would grab my head, turn my head, and then plant one on my mouth because he wanted to give mommy a kiss. Yeah, and again, it's, closed mouth, closed lip. Toddlers will do that. They say, in fact, my puppy will do that. Puppies don't kiss on the lips. But my dog learned what makes mommy tick, I guess, because she sees daddy kiss mommy on the lips. So when I came home from a trip, I pick her up and she gives me a lick on the mouth. I don't want her to lick me on the mouth because she eats the cat poo-poo, But, even animals learn. So sometimes it's people are, kids and animals are learning each other. But when a child is older, no, kiss on the cheek, kiss. And the awkwardness is very innate. It's very instinctive where no, just like when we talk about nudity in the family, when it gets awkward, it's time. And if you, for some reason, you're not feeling awkward, let's just not do the nude thing. When they're over 6, 7, 8, or pre-puberty, let's maybe slowly start to kind of clothe ourselves, please. When society starts to think something's odd. But, I understand that there's a lot of closeness that families have. And, this father might have thought an earlobe is away from the face, away from the mouth, a secular or a non-sexual part of the body, and so I could just chew on the ear. The problem is why it's bad is these kids can't give consent. How many kids really want their earlobe eaten? And the issue I have as a physician is kids will be afraid. I couldn't stand having to meet a relative and have them kiss you. Or go give your aunt somebody a kiss. I don't want to go up and kiss somebody. Yeah, we tell, don't make your child do that. They could do a hug. But if your child doesn't want to, it's okay to do fist bump. It's okay to do a high five. It's okay to do that. But forcing a kid, you're not going to make the kid like that person. And then that kid's going to run. And by the way, if you're ever the person that gets forced to hug, so my brother had a daughter recently, and the daughter's in that age where she doesn't go up to strangers. And so they're like, go give your Aunt Daliah a hug. No, she doesn't have to give me a hug. She doesn't have to give me a hug. And I earned the hug after I was giggling and this. And then I was, then I was like, oh, I want a hug. I need a hug. She ran up and gave me a hug, but it was on her own time. So we do a lot of things that we traditionally had to go through as kids with our current kids, and our kids, they don't force a kid to hug somebody. You could be very respectful by doing a handshake, by going, hi, grandma, hi, auntie. And then when they feel comfortable at the end of the evening or whatever, maybe then, do you want to do hug goodbye? That means more to a family member, seeing that child turn and want to, than the child feeling forced and traumatized by it. So as it pertains to nibbling on your kids, did I pretend to eat my kids' toes? Yes, I did. I pretended that their toes were food and I was going to go yum, 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 yum. But again, they were toddlers. They weren't older. You really don't want to stick an 8-year-old child's foot in your mouth, because that child is disgusting. All right, just food for thought. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.